It's Football Friday, which means a brand new episode of Across the Line. Today, we get a little bit personal. It's been 12 months since I've been on the show, Chris. It's just flown by, really.
For me, it's been a long 12 months, but yeah. We decided we wanted to do a little bit of a review session today. Just have a reminisce over the episodes that we've done. Obviously in your 12 months and then the few months that we had prior to you joining the show. And we uncover so much. Like, it's nice to sit down and go through some of the episodes that we've done together and think back to some of the key episodes that we've had, really, and discuss some of the highlights, because it's been, I think, 30 episodes during the lockdown period. This will be the 31st. So there's been a lot that we've been through over this period. So it's nice to sit down, talk through some of those key moments, key episodes, the highlights for both of us. And it was nice. It was nice to go back down memory lane and think about some of the really, really fun episodes that we've done together.
Yeah, it's been a tremendous experience, this journey on Across the Line. And we really have a good look at everything. So we hope you appreciate this episode. If you do, subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, and on Apple Podcasts. You can find us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and on Twitter. Without further ado, it's a little bit of a look back of the last 12 months here on Across the Line. It's our 31st episode while on quarantine. Man, the time has flown by, Chris. We've been banging these episodes out, and you know what? I gotta say, I am extremely appreciative of everybody who's been following along for the ride.
Yeah, it's been incredible. Obviously, we've been doing it for a while. It's very different surroundings compared to the studio that we normally find ourselves in. And, while obviously that intimacy factor that you have with your inner studio is great, it's obviously been really nice to connect with some of the different people that we've had who we normally wouldn't be able to get into the studio. So, the guys who've been based abroad, getting people at different times of the day, obviously with their work schedules and whatnot. So I think it's been a nice way to sort of pass the time throughout this quarantine period.
And we've been able to speak with some spectacular guests from all over the world, and that's been one positive from it. Neil Etheridge, Rob Gear has been back on the show. We've had a whole bunch of your friends, actually, who we've had an opportunity to catch up with. We had the Hammond set episode, Michael Cunningham, Riz on racism. Goodness, man. It's been amazing to be able to connect with some of these individuals who, honestly, I wouldn't have ever imagined that I'll be able to speak with them.
Yeah, I think obviously this is close to being 1 year for you.
Yeah.
1 year on the podcast. So congratulations for that. Obviously, late comer to the show, initially as a guest.
Yeah.
I think you came on for, was it the Azkals 11? Was that your first episode with us?
That's right. Yeah, the all-time Azkals 11, which was, I was really thrilled to be a part of that program, to be a part of that show. I had a hard time sleeping the night before, just running through all the different options in every position. But man, I really enjoyed that. And to be part of the show after that it's been a real dream for me,
What's been some of the personal highlights for you during this past 12 months? What are things that stand out for you in some of the interviews that you've conducted?
This is not a knock on you, but I did do a couple of solo interviews, both of which I really stick out in my mind. Not because you weren't there, but because of the individuals that I spoke with. Anto Gonzalez, I am a huge admirer of his, and he's done spectacularly in the college level. And to be able to speak with him alone and to really get his take and understanding of where we need to go moving forward was a real treat for me. And then, of course, I spoke to the president of the PFF, Nonong Araneta. And it was kind of nice to be able to see a side of him that people of our generation don't really know. His playing days were well removed from the time that we've been involved in knowing him. We know him as just the president, but he's a real passionate person about the game. And it was cool to be able to see a more personal side from him. So those two, I would say, are real standouts for me. But, it's hard to choose from everybody else because we've had a lot of great interviews, man. And personally, if there wasn't anybody listening, I would still do them. I would still want to speak to these people. So that's how I feel personally. And so everyone is an opportunity to learn and pick up new things. So just for example, Kevin Goko, man, what an interview that was, and learning from him and all the things that we've been wanting to see, to know that somebody's already implementing it. that blew my mind away, you know, and it's these episodes that continue to keep that fire burning to be involved in Philippine football. Because sometimes when things get a little crazy in this industry, you think, am I in the right place? Am I doing the right thing? Have I wasted 5 years of my life in this sport, in this country? And then you meet and talk to people like that, and you think, man, there's light at the end of the tunnel. So yeah, there's a lot, Chris. What about you?
I really enjoyed your episode of Anton Gonzalez. I remember I was actually stuck in traffic going to a coaching conference when I listened to that one. And I was really disappointed when I had to get out the car and actually go to the seminar, because he was a really engrossing character. And I mean, I've known him for a long time. And so some of his story I was quite familiar with. But, you know, knowing that he came from predominantly like a basketball background initially, and then kind of accidentally was thrust into football, it was really interesting, because I guess he's such a student of the game. I always just assumed that he was always in love with the game, but it wasn't. It was actually just a pretty fluky turn of events that actually enabled him to even start playing football. So I really enjoyed that interview. I think you're right. That was one that I particularly enjoyed. Going back on your point about being a soloist, I think one of my personal favourites then was Alvin Ocampo. If we go and tit for tat with episodes where we were riding solo, that for me was a really fun episode. Again, similar with Anto, actually, known him for a long time, very passionate about the game here in this country specifically, and just wanted to give him the platform to speak his mind, because he'd obviously been on before. On social media, talking about some of his grievances with the game, some of his hopes and dreams for how he wanted the game to develop. So just wanted to give him the platform and the outlet maybe to explore and expand on that a little bit further. So that was an episode I really enjoyed. And then going back to what you were saying about problems that you've encountered, I really like the Daniel Bennett episode that we did together. You know, talking about a country in Singapore, you know, first world country, you know, so many affluent individuals who live in that country, an abundance of opportunities, and yet they still have so many problems within their domestic game. And it doesn't sound nice, but it was actually nice to hear that countries like Singapore have problems, because, you know, we obviously talk and speak about some of the issues that we encounter here. And then lo and behold, he comes on the show and says, look, actually the grass isn't always greener on the other side, Chris. You know, these are some of the experiences and problems that we have. And, you know, that was actually quite refreshing to hear. Some of these other countries that perhaps on paper or from the outside looking in have stronger infrastructures, but they too still have issues.
And the way their perception has changed of the Philippines over the last few years, right? I mean, when we speak about our problems, they look at us like, man, what are you talking about? You guys are on top of the world, right? So it is quite interesting to understand that, you know, your perspective is so easily shaped by the things that you read and the things that you see. But, you know, what it really is on the ground level is completely different, right? I mean, everybody's going through trouble now. And now we're starting to see who among the leagues in this region are most prepared for this crazy situation that we find ourselves in. You know, even places like Singapore, as you mentioned, don't have a league ongoing at the moment. They've been trying to get off the ground again, but they've been finding it difficult. You know, Malaysia is in a better place. Thailand's in a better place. But Vietnam is about to get started again. But Indonesia, for example, they're not ongoing. So we find ourselves in a similar boat with leagues that are way more well established than ours, right? I mean, when you look at the Liga One, man, that's 20 teams and a lot of support behind that, but they can't get off the ground. So it's so interesting to be able to see those different types of dynamics, and it's only possible by speaking to individuals like Daniel Bennett. Who would have thought, right? Daniel Bennett, I used to see that guy on TV all the time, like Suzuki Cup, right? Suzuki Cup in Singapore and Daniel Bennett. Those things were synonymous with one another, and kind of trippy, to be honest, to be able to speak with him.
Yeah, I think that aspect of having these podcasts, these episodes, I think is, you know, bringing those seminal moments to life, and then also giving the different perspectives. I think that's what I've really enjoyed in doing these podcasts. You know, we talked to Simon McMenemy, for example, and in his podcast, you know, it gave us a completely different perspective on how we saw the 2010 Suzuki Cup campaign. I mean, we've had Rob Gear on the show, we've had Neil Etheridge on the show, you know, and we all talk about it from the player perspective. You know, Anton Del Rosario speaks about it from, you know, from his position. We never really thought about it from the coach's perspective. You know, I haven't really heard him talk about it all that often. So to have his perspective on it, and it was completely different. It was completely different to how I perceived it as a player, and maybe how other people perceived it as fans. And it was really nice to kind of get that outlook, because I think how we see things is obviously only through that individual's lens. So to have that different perspective on things through the recounts of different individuals, it just brings that story to life and adds an extra layer and actual dimension to what already has been, you know, a wonderfully told story. So that's something that I've really taken from doing these podcasts. It's just the different dynamics and different dimensions that you add to some of the familiar and well-documented stories.
And the untold stories, Chris, right? I mean, Simon McMenemy, the way he got the job, the turmoil that he was going in emotionally, mentally, knowing that this was well beyond his scope of expertise, yet he was taking on a job and, you know, finding his way in a foreign land, and feeling disrespected at the press conferences when everybody was writing us off. You know, these things are little nuances to the tale that slip through the cracks, you know, and it was pretty cool to be able to recount those things. And, you know, the conversation that we had about youth, let's look back at, let's say, somebody like Will Valtos, who came onto the show and gave us a perspective on what it takes to make it into the college game, or going abroad for college to hone your game there. You know, I imagine that there's a lot of kids who listen to us, a lot of your academy members who are tuned in and figuring and listening to that and thinking, man, you know, I got to think bigger maybe. You know, maybe I don't have to just focus on the schools that are here in the country. Maybe I can go abroad. It's nice to see that different perspective and the amount of work actually that goes into finding your way into a place like the United States to play your ball. I mean, Will Valtos, that was a really enlightening one for me.
Yeah, so Will, I don't know if you know this, but Will's school just got the #1 ranking in the US this season. It's just come up. So, you know, Wake Forest again, you know, really leading the charge in the collegiate game in the US. They're going great guns at the start of the season. So congratulations to them. I definitely think it sheds light to the possibilities of what's out there for young Filipino talent. You know, it doesn't have to be such a linear path compared to what it was maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago. It doesn't have to be, okay, you go high school, you go to college, you know, play at a prestigious school, and then try to figure out, you know, a way into the professional game. It doesn't have to be like that anymore. You know, there's so many different pathways that you can take. And obviously, you know, William Valtos, for example, went down that route via Bangkok, Phuket in Thailand, came back for a while, then went to the US, is forging his way over there. Who knows where his career is going to end up? You know, we'd love to see him playing on the professional stage. Mark Winhofer is another one who's done something similar. That he's over at Yale. I mean, Yale's a phenomenal academic institution. So, you know, whether he decides to pursue his football career, there's sort of talk about him potentially going into the MLS after this season. That, you know, he's really got a real buzz about him over in the US at the moment. So, yeah, I think that's a potentially really, really good story for homegrown talent. If we can get someone who's come through the system here, going and playing in a big league abroad, that would be fantastic. A huge feather in our cap. Obviously, we had Harvey Gayoso on the show, who is going through a more traditional route. Obviously, announced shortly after he came on the show that he was going to go into the ADT setup. So, you know, even though there are guys who are forging their own path, he's gone down the more traditional route. Did very well in the SEA Games, for example. Was obviously called up to the national team. Was involved with the Suzuki Cup. So yeah, again, just highlighting his story and how he got to where he's got to in his career. And obviously, I think it's nice to see these young kids who are about to embark on their careers and how they've got to that stage, and tempering that with some of the more established players that we've had on the show, talking about how their careers have been over a 10, 15, 20 year span, for example. Yeah. So it's nice to kind of have that spectrum of experiences, both guys who are about to embark on their professional journeys and those who've had, very long season careers.
You speak of people like Nate Berkey, Louis Clark, individuals who have hung up their boots. Man, those episodes for me were great because I know these individuals. I'm friends with them. But when you sit down and speak with an individual for an hour or more, you get to get into the nitty gritty. And it's spectacular to see that these guys and the memories that they've created here in the Philippines. You sort of just gloss over them sometimes, but man, these things stick and really attach themselves to a person's, not only their memory, but their identity of who they are, And when you've been around the game for as much as we have, let's say over the last 10 years, just for an example, it's like when you're in it, when you're living it, it's easy to just gloss over it. But when you look back at it, it's like, man, that was a classic moment. That was the moment that could have changed things, or this was the moment that changed that person's life. And I guess doing the podcasts, it makes me more attuned to what I'm getting myself into right now, and the moments that I'm getting myself into. For example, in this pandemic, right, this quarantine period, you're gonna remember this forever, right? When we're 60 and we're gray or whatever, we're gonna look back at the time of the pandemic and how we conducted ourselves, right? And the things that we had to overcome and things that we went through. So I guess it just gives you more of a perspective that, man, you gotta, how should you say, savor these moments, whether it's good or bad, the highs and the lows. It's all that what makes fun storytelling at the end of the day, right? Which I hope when the time comes, we'll be speaking our stories, not just an Ask Me Anything for Chris Greatwich, maybe, a real in-depth interview, which I still want to do, by the way. I'd like to be able to speak to you, me as interviewer and you as interviewee, nobody else. Not that I don't like other people's questions, but it gets in the way of the flow sometimes.
Yeah, is that because you already said you like to do episodes without me? You've already established this on camera. So
it's not personal. I don't want anybody else involved.
Yeah, I'm guessing you kind of sputtered me up a little bit by saying if it's me interviewing you, then it's okay. But yeah, no, I would love to do one. I would love to do one, and maybe set a few things straight, and maybe that's something that we would do down the line. Maybe when the studio opens up, we could get it in the rooms, and you can see the whites of my eyes and get a real gauge for the true me. But yeah, I mean, actually, that's why we do it, isn't it? It's why we do it. We'd love to give people the platform. We love to give people the opportunity to speak, and I think it's definitely been enjoyable, especially during this pandemic period, to try to connect and speak to people who we wouldn't normally have the opportunity to. But if you're going to ask me loads of questions, there's one question I want to ask for you. Really, is we've established, some of the more fond episodes that you've had over this 12-month period. But any surprise packages, any interviews that you were like, wow, I didn't expect to hear that from that person, or anyone's personality completely different to how you perceive them on the field?
I would say Bienvenido Marañón. He's the freshest in my mind right now, but I always looked at Bienve as a bit of a nasty character, right? He's got a bit of a nasty streak with him when he's on the pitch, right? He's not going to take any nonsense. He's very quick to pressure the referee. He's got some antics, I suppose, when you're on the opposition side that could rub you the wrong way. And I didn't know him personally at all, right? I knew him as a thorn in the side of Kaya, and as I said, kind of a nasty character at times. But getting to know him, it was so weird. Like, how is he the same guy?
You seem very conflicted during it. You were like, I could see it in your face. You started to think, I quite like this guy.
Yeah.
I quite like him.
Yeah, exactly that. All the signs point to the fact that I'm not supposed to like this guy, but yet he's a different person. You know what I mean? And it is another lesson in just separating the character from the person, right? Separating the character on the pitch to the character he really has as a human being. And when you get to a chance to separate that, it becomes clear who they really are. And it's nice to see that his heart's in the right place, and him gunning for naturalization. I'm on the team Go Bienve. You know what I mean? Now it's like, let's get him out there. Let's get him the shirt. Let's get him the the nationality that he wants, right? So he can stay here in the country. And honestly, I feel like he'd be a great asset to Philippine football. But those pleasant surprises, as you said, there's been quite a few of them on this episode. One that I was not a part of, which I really thoroughly enjoyed listening to, I would say is the Simone Rota episode. And I think anybody who has not tuned into that one is, I think a lot of people look at Simone and, he lives in an orphanage and whatnot. It's like people are quick to brush it off as like another heartwarming story to tell, that this guy is coming back and helping in the orphanage. No, this is like the trauma that guy has gone through from a young kid being taken to Italy. And you think, oh, you grew up in Italy, it was a life of privilege. Again, no, man, that episode brought tears to my eyes more than once in that episode. And Simone is part of Kaya, so I get a chance to speak with him on a regular basis, and it's amazing to see where he is now, what he's gone through, the things that he had to overcome to be where he is now. And where he lives now? In the orphanage. That's where he's staying during this pandemic, where he could be helpful, where he could be around the sisters and to be around the kids who were in his position at one time. So beautiful individual, and it's not possible, again, without a proper conversation. So it's unique to be able to sit down with somebody. Sad how unique it is, to be honest. Like, we should be doing it more often on a regular basis with our friends and our family, but sitting down without any phones, without any distractions for an hour and a half is sadly very, very rare. So yeah, it's been a tremendous honor to be doing this show, hosting the show with you, and just the individuals that we've been able to speak with, man. Wow. Unbelievable.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think the Bienve one was a surprise, in the sense that, as you illustrated, I didn't really know him that well, probably a little bit better than you. We bumped into each other on the circuit a little bit, and he's always very nice, always very pleasant. When you meet someone face to face, if it's just those 1 or 2 minute transactions, it's you still go away thinking, "Hey, he's that horrible, nasty piece of work who's play acting or arguing with the referee or gesticulating, complaining about a foul, this and that." But then once you speak to him and you see that he is passionate about the Philippines, and he's passionate about wanting to live in here post-career, set up his life here, maybe have a family here, set up his businesses here, you come away thinking, yeah, he's a pretty nice guy, pretty stand-up guy. And it would be great if he wore the Philippines shirt, because I think he would wear it with pride. And I don't know about you, but I've had a lot of feedback from it, Jing. A lot of feedback from people saying, look, really enjoyed that episode. Completely different picture to how you imagine him on the field. Different character off it. I think that is also something that we're all probably quite guilty of. There is an assumption of that persona that you have on the field carries over into your private life, into your personal life. And it's very, very seldom the case. Very seldom the case. Yeah. So, and I think going through these other podcasts that we've had with other guests, you need to have this different persona when you're on the pitch. You need to be ruthless. You need to be a winner. You need to fight. You need to scrap. Maybe the Dean Hammond one was a great example of that. Like how you need to have this single-mindedness in order to succeed. And if you don't have that, it's going to be very difficult for you to have longevity in this game. So. Yeah, I think I'm hoping that a lot of those interviews have been able to give, again, that different dimension, a different perspective on some of the interviewees, because I think that enables them to bring their football persona to a more well-rounded human being, that people can really get to know and understand their personalities. I totally agree with you. I think the Simone Rotter one is maybe the most emotional one that we've done. Difficult to keep it together in the studio. I think we've been quite frank when we did those episodes. Obviously, when you're doing these interviews, you hope you can draw things out of people, and it was just. There were times during the interview where my mouth was just open, like I can't believe what these words are coming out of his mouth. I can't believe he's being this open. And it goes back to what you said before. I've been teammates with him for probably 4 or 5 years, known him for probably 8 or 9. None of those things we knew about.
Yeah.
You know, and we're not talking about someone you see occasionally. We've been in camps together for months.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? You'd eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner with him every day.
Which is awesome, right? Because like it needs to be a particular setting to come out with such emotional.
Exactly.
Right. It's not like you're gonna do it over breakfast with the rest of the team, right? So.
And I think it's something that he couldn't share. It's not something you're going to do over a morning coffee and just be like, contemplate suicide once, Chris. You know, it's not going to come out, when you're eating your toast or whatever. Exactly. It does, you'd need to sort of draw it out of these individuals. And the Shockey one was similar. Obviously, the very first podcast that we did, I had no idea about his background with his dad being a boxer and obviously him taking it home at times, and having that sort of volatile background, led Shockey to do some naughty stuff growing up. He was quite open about that he was a bit of a tearaway when he was a kid, but how that helped sort of shape him as he got older, and how he really values his family time now, and how he is as a father. Like, it's until you sit down and have these conversations with these individuals, that's when you really start to get the full picture about what these people are all about. And exactly as you said, that's why we do these podcasts, to try to bring these football characters to life, and hopefully you get to see the broader spectrum of what each individual person is like off the pitch.
That was actually the beginning for me. And I reached out to you. I reached out to the Facebook page, put out a review. I remember listening on my flight to Iloilo at that time, and I had an hour to spare, and I was like, the Across the Line podcast had just launched, and Stefan Schrock was the first person. So I listened to it, and I had flown there with Shermar Filonco, who had the unenviable task of having to mark Stefan Schrock on several matches. And obviously, a lot of those matches had turned nasty between Kaya and Ceres. So it's obvious that there's already a way that he's framed in the mind of Shermar. And I told him, you got to listen to this. You got to listen to this episode. You're going to understand Schrock a lot better. And we separated ways that day. He had listened to it, and he's like, man, tremendous episode. And no, he's not like an English-speaking guy, but he got the essence of who that person was, right? And I remember thinking, like, I can't wait to have an opportunity to do the same, right? To be able to speak to individuals and tease these things out of them, because I want to know the person, not just the footballer. And lo and behold, a few months later, I would be guesting on the show, and then later on being your co-host. It's crazy how that pans out, It's a corny thing to say, but it's like your energy sort of like it reciprocates back to you. What you're looking for comes back to you in some strange form. And I wasn't trying to get on the podcast. I was just expressing my appreciation that the podcast existed. And eventually it opened up, and here I am. And I have to be extremely grateful to you, extremely grateful to Toby, who produces the show, for thinking that I could add something to the show, to bring something to it, and something positive. And hopefully it's not something that only you guys see, but the listeners as well, and those who have been watching, that I like doing this, man. I have a tremendous passion for it. And we were just speaking a little bit prior to the start of this episode that, listen, we would do this even if, whatever, like if we asked each other that, hey, would you like to sit down just so we can speak to somebody, regardless if it was a podcast or not, we'd love to do it. So, wow. I'm looking forward to the episodes that we have in the future, man. Like, the sky's the limit, and I genuinely believe that Philippine football, regardless of all the trouble that it's had to overcome, is in a special place. There's going to be interesting and exciting things to transpire. And hopefully we'll be there every step of the way to not only share the news, inform people, but give that take that is a little bit deeper, a little bit more nuanced than what people tend to comment on the internet. Because you see a lot of people who spout a lot of things as if they know what's going on, but they don't. There's a lot of dynamics at play. And yeah, the more that we do this, the more that it becomes clear that these things exist. One guy that I want to mention before anything is that conversation we had with Ryan Phoenix. Man, I've been working with that guy for 10 years, man. And to know about where his roots came from, and it's so much fun to be able to speak with friends in this manner, So long may it continue, that we can continue to do this.
Yes, it's so funny you brought that up, because Neil Etheridge called me last night and he said, I'm listening to the Ryan Phoenix episode right now. He said, I'm loving it, really, really enjoying it. So yeah, totally agree with that. The Rick Oliveira's one is the same. It's about, these guys have been the informants, for so many football fans over the course of these years. And it's nice to have them, rather than tell other people's stories. It's nice to hear them give their own story and then their own version of the events as well. So no, totally agree with you on that one. I really enjoyed those individuals who came on with a different background, different focus, different elements to their personality. Not just the guys who were performing on the pitch, but also the people with the backstories, with the information from the other angles, other perspectives. It was great to have them on the show.
We even did the Southeast Asian Games one. Man, what's funny about those episodes that we did? I recall individuals who were going to play in games in the Southeast Asian Games who had tuned into our episodes and felt pumped up by it. Mm-hmm. The women's team, especially, they were like, man, they're talking about us. They get where we're coming from. We get the fight that we're embarking on. And it was pumping them up before a big game. And I was like, wow. That never even crossed my mind that we could have that effect, So it's cool.
Yeah, man. I like that. I really like that episode. Like we spoke about it with some of the ladies that were listening to it on the bus on the way there. They were getting amped up. We've had the academy kids from Kaya on the show before, and I know that they were pumped up afterwards, to hear themselves and watch themselves on the channel. And really what we hope from that is we inspire, don't we? We inspire some other young players to be like, I want to be like Harvey Guerrero, so I want to be like Will Valtor, so I can see myself going to America and playing. I can see myself playing in the Azkals development squad. If you're a young girl, I could be the next Ina Palacios and go and play as a goalkeeper for the national team in a SEA Games or an Asian Cup. You know what I mean? I think we've got to really highlight that, because if like I said, we speak about Philippine football a lot. But if we don't do our part to inspire the next generation of people coming through, it could be a kid, it could be a parent who's trying to get their kid into the game, it could be a young coach who's trying to look for some sort of inspiration when working with their young teams, then we're not doing our job. So we've got to make sure that we do that. Obviously when there are some negative things, we have to comment on that and hope that we can improve those by highlighting some of the issues. But definitely, I think we try and do our best, don't we, to inform and to provide opportunities for people who are doing really good things, to have that aspirational element and to inspire those people who are looking to aspire to that level.
Yeah, 100%, man. And every person that messages and sends us their appreciation, it means a lot. It really does. Even if it's just like, thank you for the episode. It's like, somebody listened today. That's good. It really gives me a buzz every time. And it's given me this opportunity. I've been speaking with other people in the football community. I've had opportunities to interview people, but not like this. So I appreciate it. 1 year has gone by so quickly, Chris. I was counting just the amount of episodes that we did in lockdown. As I mentioned, 30 episodes, man. This is our 31st in lockdown. I mean, we haven't stopped though, and that I appreciate. That we didn't actually take a break. We didn't need time to figure things out. No, we just kept going. And
yeah,
if I'm honest, I might be a different person if we didn't have it. Mentally, emotionally, I might be a bit of a wreck if I didn't have something to look forward to. Like, oof, I'm going to be speaking to some interesting people this week. Like, if I didn't have that, I don't know, man. This might be a lifesaver for me.
Yeah, I also think, Jing, it's nice for us to have this episode, this review episode, take a little look back on some of the things that we've done over the past 12 months since you've been involved, and kind of go through them, because I think it is very difficult for us to gain perspective during this period, because each day sort of blends into the next, doesn't it? So I think it's nice. We're at a nice point now where I think we're at the point where hopefully the PFL is about to kick off. Yeah. So, that's going to start coming thick and fast, and we'll be reviewing games and we'll be hopefully commenting on the action. So before that starts, I think it's nice for us to sit down, have a conversation, have a little look back over the time that we've had through your first 12 months on the show, and just think back over some of the really, really good episodes that we've had. And I think it's good to sort of get that perspective for ourselves, because it's very easy to kind of get carried away. And obviously, like you said, thank you to everyone who's tuned in over this period, because it means so much to us. And we'd like to try to reach a broader audience, a bigger spectrum of individuals from within the footballing world. So if they like it, share it, tell a friend, all that sort of stuff. It makes a huge difference, because as you said, I think we're doing a great service for the Philippine football public and the broader football public as a whole. And we want to continue doing it, don't we? Because we do enjoy it. So all of those guys have written in, sending us messages. That's what gives us the fuel to want to do it even more. So yeah, we have to give a big shout out to those people to because they've been giving us that ammunition to want to further the show, keep developing the show, and keep wanting us to meet every week to talk about Philippine football.
100%. Not possible without you guys. So thank you. And for those who are just new to the show and tuning in, this is probably not the best one for you guys to get started with. It's a bit of a review, but actually it might be a good one. I think
it might be, mate. Might be, yeah. Hopefully that might pique some people's interest. You know what I mean? I'll go back and I'll listen to that one. I'll listen to that episode about Harvey. I'll listen to that episode about Simone. And so maybe it could be a good one to get out to some people. Some
great episodes, to be honest. Without blowing smoke up our own behinds, there's some quality conversations here, and we'd appreciate it if you guys have a look at all the different people that we've had on the show. Right, Scott Cooper, for example, we didn't even mention him. That was a great episode. So look back, have a gander at the many videos that are out there, and get to know some of the personalities in Philippine football a little bit better. But yeah, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, we're there. Subscribe to it, like it, rate and review it. Man, it means a lot to us. It really does mean the world to us. And you can find us on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and on Instagram. That's it, Chris. I appreciate you. I appreciate everybody who's tuning into the show, and we look forward to the next one.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate you speaking about all of the episodes that we've had. It's been tough trying to think of all the episodes that we've done in this lockdown. Like you said, I mean, I apologise if we've missed people like Jiffy Caligdon. He even mentioned his episode. Rob Gear's episode. We've done some episodes, mate. So I think it's understandable we might miss a few people out. So if there's people listening, guess who had on the show we've missed out. Sorry, guys. Yours, James Young Husband, awesome episode, 50th episode. Can't forget him. But yeah, it's been wonderful. It's been a great journey. It's been brilliant to have you on. It's been a real privilege to get your insights for the past 12 months. So hopefully we look forward to another 12 months and many more years to come on this show. But yeah, again, thanks again for everyone for tuning in. Thanks everyone for listening. We really, really appreciate it.
See you guys next time for the next Football Friday.